This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, we have as our guest tonight one of my oldest and best friends, the longtime legendary mayor of the city of Brundage, Mayor Jimmy Ramage, James T. Ramage, banker and diplomat and mayor of the city of Brundage. Jimmy, good to have you.
Glad to be here.
Jimmy Ramage is a legend in Alabama. He knows everybody in the state. He's been around a long time. He's one of my best political friends. We've been longtime friends. We're both Alabama graduates, and we like Alabama football, and we like Alabama politics. He's been around a long time. Jimmy grew up in Brundage. His family's been there a long time, although his mama was from Troy.
That's
on
right.
Orange Street.
Sure did.
And she was a Green, wasn't she?
She was a Riley.
Riley, that's right, yeah.
Her best friend was the Green.
Right, and then right there on Orange Street, but your family's been in the banking business. Tell our folks, how has your family been the primary stockholder in that First National Bank for how many years now?
My great-grandfather founded the bank in 1904. In fact, it was October the 15th.
He founded it in 1904.
Right. 29 years old.
What was his name, James?
James T. Ramage.
Are you the third?
I'm the third.
Okay, I didn't realize that. You about like that family, that Snodgrass family I was talking about up
Exactly.
there in Scottsboro.
And I've got the fourth. My oldest son is James T. Ramage the fourth.
Now he's in banking in Birmingham, isn't he?
Brentwood now.
Brentwood, Tennessee. He's in banking though.
Oh yeah, he works for Renaissance.
Did he major in finance at Alabama?
No, he majored in hospital management, but he had the good fortune of graduating when Miss Clinton was trying health care the first time, and everywhere he went, they had a moratorium on hiring, trying to see what was going to happen.
So he went into banking then?
He went into banking then because his experience, he worked with us in the summers, so he got a job, started his career with AmSouth.
Jimmy, now how much older is he than John?
4 years.
And John's now the president of the bank.
Sure is.
And now tell me, your granddaddy, how long was he president after he started
My
the bank?
great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather.
He died in the late 30s, so he was president about 29 years, 28.
Started that bank, and you know, I guess, you know, then who followed him as president?
He had several presidents along in there. Mr. Marley, Esco Marley, who happened to be chairman of the Alabama superintendent of banks.
Yeah.
Our banks had two superintendents, Dr. Wayne Curtis and Esco Marley. Were both superintendents of banks, and both of them were president of our bank at one time.
What about, then you became president what year?
I came president in the 70s.
Not long after you left Alabama.
Well, when I got back home, Mr. Owens was at the bank, and Mr. Owens was quite old. And when he passed away, Kyle
Was he a
Everett and I-
Brundage guy? Mr. Owens was
Mr. Owens actually from Barbie County.
over around Clayton and Clyde?
Well, no, he's closer to Louisville, right across the river.
Did he live over there and serve as president of the bank?
No, he moved to Brundage when he was a young man and had the Ford dealership.
And was president of the bank at the same time?
No, he became president of the bank at the very end of his Ford dealership.
Jimmy,
when Mr. Shirley bought the Ford dealership, Mr. Owens went in the bank. He was a director, but then he went in full time because the president of the bank passed away.
The Shirleys bought that Ford dealership. They've been on it since 1970 down there.
Maybe a little earlier than that.
Is that y'all's only car dealership?
Right now we have none. They both retired.
And
Jerry
so
and
it
Jimmy
went out of
retired.
business?
That's right.
Just closed it over?
They retired and went home.
I'll be dog. Nobody bought it out or anything?
Well, you know, the big dealerships, that's one thing that's hurt small towns. The car companies themselves want to be in larger places. They don't franchise now.
When you were going to undergraduate school, did you major in finance?
I did.
Did you know you were going to go in banking probably?
No. I went to Alabama to go to law school, to be honest.
Were you going to practice back here in Troy?
I had no idea.
You didn't know?
I kind of thought about it, that I would like to go home, but I joined the National Guard and went off on my active duty, and Miss Johnny and I got married, so when I came home...
She's from Clinton from here in Troy.
She's from Banks.
Banks, that's right, yeah.
She's from Banks. So when I got home from college, got home from the National Guard, I decided I didn't want to go back to law school, so I applied for several jobs, and in fact, I'd had one accepted to Alpha. I've been offered a job with Alpha in Montgomery. Probably should have taken it.
What were you going to do? What were you going to do with Alpha?
Alpha at the time was just starting to get into loaning money on modular homes. They were going to open a real estate branch, and they had a gentleman from Mississippi that was going to move to Alabama and head it up, and they wanted somebody my age to be his lieutenant.
Jimmy, going back to your days at Alabama, you had an interesting situation there. You actually worked for the athletic department.
I sure did.
Well, first of all, you were a good high school football player. Y'all had a good football team. You played halfback on that football team.
Played halfback and quarterback and wideout.
Who all else was on that team? Bill Barr was on that team.
Judge Barr was on that team. Shelby Ingram, a CPA from Montgomery, was on that team. Dwight Henderson was on that team. He's a CPA in Montgomery. We had quite a few on that team. Ronnie Shivers, a doctor up in the Valley.
Yeah.
He was a halfback on that team. And Darrell Parker retired with the insurance company up in Pale City. So we had a good team and a lot of outstanding students too. But the key to at Alabama you mentioned is we had two guys on our team that were being recruited by Auburn, Alabama hard.
Who were they?
And that was Myron Botts and Thomas Henson.
That Henson's who I was thinking about. And, I called him Hickson, but it's Henson.
It's Henson. And Coach
what
Richard.
What did Henson play, running back? Something?
No, he played center.
Okay.
He played center and was a kicker and linebacker. He was a good linebacker.
He had an assistant that was real pretty.
He did. Carol, she went to Auburn. She had daughters that are
pretty.
And they went to Georgia Tech. One of them's an engineer. But it's a small world. But I met Richard Williamson when they were recruiting Myron and Thomas. Back in those days, there wasn't any limit on how many times you could see a player. So Richard was a graduate assistant at the time, and he came to see us play 3 or 4 times our senior year. And every time he'd come in the dressing room and sit on the bench with us after the game. So I got to know who Richard was. He got to know me because they wasn't recruiting me. They were recruiting those two. So when I got to Alabama, my dad had come down with ALS, and I really had spent a lot of money that Mother and Daddy had saved because inflation.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity either to come back and go to Troy or stay at the university if I could find me a job. So I ran into Richard one day going across the quadrangle. He was going to Bryan Hall to eat lunch because he probably was finishing up his degree. I didn't know what he was doing, but he was a graduate assistant. And I asked him, I said, you need to get me a job so I can stay up here. And he recommended to me, and so I worked my last 3 years. I worked my sophomore, junior, and senior year for the athletic department, and I had a great job. I worked at Bryan Hall, and in those days, there wasn't a 5-star hotel in Tuscaloosa. So every time Coach Bryant's friends came by, if they were entertaining either in Birmingham or Tuscaloosa, they stayed at Bryan Hall.
They stayed in the Bryan Hall?
So I'm a 19-year-old kid, and I get to wait on. I'm working the dorms.
They had a good guest there in that Bryan Hall?
Oh, yeah. Coach Bryant had about 4 rooms in Bryan Hall that was 5-star.
He was reserving them for that?
Oh, yeah. So Bob Hope.
Would they eat there with the players or have their own private dining?
I would go get the food and take it to their room.
Is that right?
Some of them would want to walk around and interact with them, but some of them wanted their privacy, but they stayed down in there. So
would they come in for games? Is that what they would come in for?
Well, some of them came for a game, but most of them came when they entertained. Andy Williams and Roger Miller. When they appeared at homecoming, I think my senior year, they were the homecoming thing. They stayed at Bryan Hall. Gomer Powell, all these guys that came in for homecoming would stay at Bryan Hall for the festivities. So you got to meet a lot of real interesting people.
Jimmy, so after you got out of Alabama, you came back here and you turned down the Alpha, you came with the bank. How old were you when you did that in 70? In 70, when you came president?
When I came back to the bank, by the time I was president, I was late 20s.
And then
too young.
Did you get right into city politics?
I got in city politics in 76. I was
6 years into
29 years old.
Before you?
I was in the bank probably 3 or 4 years before I ran for mayor.
Well, good Lord, how old were you when you were president of the bank?
I was less than 30. Too young.
But now, you know, a lot of people don't realize your bank covers a lot of counties. You got a lot of farmers around Dale and Barber that bank with you there.
And part of coffee. We do real well. Our bank has always done real well in Coffee County till the Neil Metcalf Road. It's like somebody put a fence up. Everybody on the other side of that road seems to go to Elba.
Elba.
But from folks from right along in there back, and it's because a lot of the ladies worked at Russell or Fruit of the Loom for years, so they banked
at the Brundage Bank.
So they banked in Brundage because they came in to do textiles back. A lot of people forget. This generation doesn't realize it, but at one time in the late 80s, we had nearly 900 women worked at that.
So y'all really went in the bank with y'all too, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, they banked with us, a Brundage Banking Company. So the town was pretty active and pretty good with people from Dale, Barber, and Coffee, like you said.
So in '76, when Lillian Johnson and Robert Barr were y'all a council, everybody had a commission.
And the third person wasn't going to run, so I ran for his spot in '76. Mr. McLean was the third person in that group.
What year they changed the city council?
'86.
So you served 10 years in the old city commission. Then y'all would rotate the mayor.
That's right. And I was mayor the majority of that time because Jackie Sin was the commissioner for a while, and Jackie had a milk right, so he wasn't ever in town to sign any document. So I was mayor a couple of times he was supposed to be mayor, and then the last time he wanted to be mayor, which is fine with me. And then Robert Barr owned a ton of property.
Yeah.
And during that era, you had a lot of HUD money to buy up old dilapidated houses and try to redo them. So Robert wouldn't want to be mayor because he had to sign the documents. So
yeah.
I was mayor, out of that 10 years, I was mayor probably at least 6 as a minimum, maybe more than that.
Jimmy, I've told you this story before, and I'm repeating to you, but some of the viewers may like this one. For my book, Jerry Beasley told me the funniest story about Brundage. He was a good high school quarterback at Clayton High School. Actually signed with Georgia.
He did.
He was that good a quarterback. People don't realize that. Great trial lawyer now, but he said one night he was playing Brundage, and if you know the roots of Brundage, you know there's a lot of Godwins and Sins there, and a lot of those families have been around there a long time. And it was real quiet. He was fixing to come on the center, and the loudspeaker that had Brundage made a substitution, and he says, Godwin went in and Sin went out. Had you heard that one?
I know, and I know who that he's talking about. Larry Godwin. People wouldn't believe that Larry Godwin was a good high school football.
That's who went in there.
It was Larry Godwin. So Godwin went in, and the Sin guy that came out is retired and back in Brundage. And I told him that story last year at the Brundage Country Club, and he had the biggest kick out of
it. Had you heard it before?
I've heard Jerry tell it.
Okay, you heard Jerry tell it. It's a funny. He thought that was the funniest thing he ever saw. Jerry's been on this show in the same place you are. He told, I think he may have mentioned that thing. So '76. Tell me the biggest change that you've seen in Brundage and being since you came mayor. You ran full time for mayor with the council. What year would that have been?
I ran for mayor in '86.
'86. That's 10 years of the old commission thing, and this is pushing 40 years now.
Right. This month I finished 39. Well, I went in October of '76. So we're starting on my 40th year.
So over those 40 years, from '86 to 2015, fixing to be 16, tell me what you see. What's changed in your lifetime in Brundage? So you've been mayor. What are the things you're proudest of?
Well, the biggest.
There's several questions, but I'm saying if you had to wrap up, look back on 40 years as mayor.
Okay.
If you had to say what's the biggest change in Brundage, what's been some of your best experiences? What do you feel proudest of as accomplished in 40 years as mayor?
Okay. Biggest change is like most small towns in Alabama and in other states, we were dependent on textiles.
Yep.
The biggest manufacturer in Brundage, like I said earlier, was Fruit of the Loom.
They called it shirt factory.
Shirt factory. Had the most people. Troy had 2, I think, at one time.
Yeah.
At one time. And Delusion. You just go down the list. Hartford, Geneva. Everybody had either one company or another had a textile. Well, we lost all that in the 90s.
NAFTA.
It was NAFTA. You're right. And for a while there, we could cut cloth in America and send it to be sewn and brought back. Now we did that with Russell, but the plant during that time dropped from 900 employees to 200. So that
I remember when I first got into politics, that was the first place I started campaigning.
Oh yeah,
was the running shirt factory, thrift exchange.
I got up a menu during different races for Bill Baxter, and we'd be down there at 7 o'clock when they come through the gate, stand outside the gate and shake hands.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing that hurt a lot of rural towns. A lot of them hadn't got over it. The greatest thing that happened to Brundage during that time is we also had, going back to in the 30s, we had 2 peanut butter mills, Johnston and Johnson. So Brundage had a little manufacturing, but even though it was small in thing, we had a little. And then in the late 40s or early 50s, Southeastern Foods, which was owned by the Chapman family from Geneva, put a mayonnaise factory in Brundage. So
how many did that employ?
That didn't ever employ over 20 or 30, but the key was by having something that made mayonnaise, mustards, salad dressings, you had to treat the wastewater. So Brundage we got kind of pushed into understanding that. Now at the time we put it in our regular wastewater treatment plant, but we learned right quickly, like when you Clean Air Acts and some of these others, that oil was rise on the top. You can't put it in the creek. So we were forced to build and update our wastewater treatment plant. When I first went on the council in '76, the biggest issue facing Robert and Lee, and when I went on there, they said, the biggest issue we got is we got to build this wastewater treatment plant.
How much of a bond
and we don't know how we're going to pay for it.
Y'all passed a bond issue?
We
for it?
passed a bond issue and did it.
Biggest one y'all probably ever done?
At the time, it was one of the biggest, but it's the best thing that happened to us. Now, a little side note on that, from the time I'm talking about that we had to build it, in this interim, Southeastern Foods was sold to Brundage Foods, who at that point came to Troy. But we still, earlier, our city fathers had recruited Doxy Foods. So we had 2 food manufacturers. So Doxy was there.
They still wasn't like with the shirt factory.
Oh, nothing. 50 people maybe at the most. So over time, we were forced to build that wastewater treatment plant. And over the years, we had upgraded it to meet all the new government regulations. So as I sit here today, Brundage has gone from textiles to, we just broke ground on our 3rd food manufacturer. We got Southern Classic Foods, which is a homegrown company. Then we've got Supreme Oil, which is owned by a family also, but it's owned out of a family out of New Jersey. And now the 3rd one we just broke ground on, it's called Magnolia Vegetable Processors, is our 3rd plant. And so that's really helped us with the wastewater, and all 3 of them are there because Brundage's capacity to treat the oil that comes out of manufacturing. And during that interim, Brundage had the good fortune, been blessed, that we got a Walmart distribution center, and probably we just, the end of, in the 90s when Sigelman was governor, I don't remember that year, but now that employs between 600 and 700.
That's your biggest employer.
And that's the biggest employer, and it's the biggest user of city utilities and electricity is Walmart. Now the other 3 plants use a lot of water and wastewater, but Walmart DC would be our biggest user of electricity. So
Jimmy, I didn't
right
know.
now we have more people that work in Brundage than we've ever had.
Because of that Walmart. And old Wiley Lott was instrumental.
Wiley Lott was very instrumental in that. Wouldn't have happened without Wiley being where he was and when he was, that they decided they wanted to plant in North Florida or South Alabama or Southwest Georgia. So we were in that circle. And of course Wiley put our name in the lot.
Did he come talk to you about it?
Well, to be honest, we didn't know it for months. We were chasing this Greyhound bus, I call it, just us little dogs trying to chase this industry.
You knew Wiley was with Walmart?
I knew Wiley was with Walmart, but at the time the consultant came to us, he never divulged who it was and never divulged.
Didn't tell you the company?
No, wouldn't. We knew it was a distribution center. Honestly, Brett and I thought it was True Value or somebody, because they kept talking about the size. That was before they gave us the usage of electricity. Then we began to think, now this is somebody that's cooling. But now the way I found out who it was, Wiley, was right towards the very end, and I called the governor's office and was talking to the governor about trying to help us with the incentives, and he laughed and said, "Well, Jimmy, your good buddy Wiley sitting in front of him. That's the first time I knew it was Walmart.
What did you
He
think?
didn't realize I didn't know.
And he was probably the one steering it running to begin with, wasn't he?
He was. In fact, if it hadn't been for Don Siegelman, it would, I don't know how far
But
we go out, but if it hadn't been for Don Siegelman, it'd probably gone to Bay Minette.
But Wiley was involved too.
Wiley was involved, but Don really helped Brundage with the incentive package. We got a little bit better package than the other side got.
I be dog.
In the state. And then, of course, Florida, the perfect site, this is how small world, the perfect site was where 231 and I-10 connect.
Yeah,
That's where it should have been.
Yeah.
All right, Miss John and I going to the beach down that road, and we stopped at the Hardee's right there on.
Yeah.
And I put 50 cents in the thing and pick up the newspaper. And we knew we were competing with them by then. We knew it was Walmart. We knew that's where it should be. And I pick up the newspaper, the local paper, and it says, County Commission votes down spending $1 million to take water and sewage to industrial site. And that's the first bag phone I ever had, cell phone. You know, those big old bag book. And I went back to the car and called Britt, and I said, Britt, take a deep breath, bud. I got some good news.
That was the perfect spot.
I said, that's a perfect spot.
They could be wrong.
Where it ought to be, they just voted it down.
Isn't that something?
But they voted it down by the county commission to put water and
And that's a clean industry.
And later on, if I'm not mistaken, because we're involved with them in Power South, because we furnish power to that side.
Yeah.
I think lately the new group of county commissioners and city fathers, I think they've got the infrastructure on some of these sites right there. But that's where Walmart kind of, if you look at the map, it would have been perfect. Because they were going to cover South Alabama, because they got one in Coleman. And then they got one in Florida, I think in Jacksonville somewhere. So they were trying to get the Panhandle covered, the end of Mobile, and back up like
And
Florida.
ours is as big as Coleman and Jacksonville.
Oh, yeah. It's 1 million square foot under the roof.
What all they keep out there?
The main thing they sell is, of course, it's food products, but they do a lot of ice cream and a lot of frozen chicken and whatnot. And they have what they call dry side and wet side. Wet side's the frozen foods, which we like because that burns a lot of electricity to keep out ice cream. And then the other side is your bananas. You know, bananas is the #1 sale product. The grocery store sells bananas.
Is that right?
But it has other products like Kleenex and other cosmetics.
And y'all got 600-700 people employed.
600-700, not counting the trucks that come in and out.
Most of those folks live in our area. Where they live?
They live in have a lot from Crenshaw. Now that shows you how demographics have changed over years. We have a lot that come up here from Crenshaw, and Coffee, and Barber, and Dale, and we also have stretched and got a group that comes out of Covington that used to work at the mills, and the Johnson Mills, you know, in Opp, Andalusia, that closed.
I'm surprised you don't have folks from Ozark coming down.
We probably do, but we do. I know we have a lot from Luverne, because my friend over in Luverne tells me that he.
Many folks from Troy work there?
Yes. It's real good.
700 people. That's y'all's biggest employer.
600 to 700, but now Chuck, the Southern Classic Foods has got over 200 now. And then Supreme Oil, I understand, has got over 100 something. So.
Jimmy, you on the board of Power South and the gas company.
Well, Brundage has a representative on Power South and Southeast Alabama Gas. I represent Power South. Cynthia Pearson, who's our president pro temp and a city council member, she's on the gas board. In fact, she's serving as their chairman right now.
You used to be, though.
No, I've never been on the gas board. When I went on the council, Robert Ball was serving on the gas board. And Leon was on the Power South board, and when she lost the election in '78, they put me on Power South board, and I've been on Power South board since 1978. I'm the longest serving trustee. They got 37 years last meeting.
The guy, what made me realize that, the guy Henderson, who's the president of Southeast Alabama Gas, spoke to Greg Rotary Club one time recently, and we were talking about that. I was just amazed what percent of how important industrial energy is to those two companies.
Oh yeah, well we buy Power South. We buy a lot of natural gas from. Use their lines to get it to our power plant in Gant. We have a natural gas power plant there in Gant. In fact, we have two. And then we have one over in McIntosh, and we buy a lot of natural gas. Use their lines. We're married to each other. There's no doubt about it.
But what I'm saying is that how much more important industrial is to those utilities than regular residences.
Oh yeah, you just stop and think how much natural gas the plants here in Troy use, like at
Sanders.
Sanders Lead would be one.
He told me this. Sanders the biggest one.
Biggest customer they had. Then you've got peanut butter. I mean, I imagine they use natural gas to heat it. Now, most of our products made in Brundage, they use electricity because it's mixing stuff, you know. But Brundage and Troy are a member. It's 14 members of the gas company, different cities, and the reason for that is when they got ready to go to the big time, is 14 of them went to the bank and signed the loan, and there's probably 20 other cities that get natural gas, but they do not share in the revenue.
There's some kind of ties here. You know, you think about, you're a banker. Charles Henderson was a banker. He helped found Power South. You've been on the board 30 years. And also, you're chairman of the board of the Child Health Center.
That's true.
You know, what a legacy Charles Henderson left.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Look at the school buildings he built.
Every school in our county.
Every school in our county.
And that Child Health Center is one of the most elite places. Every child in our county. When I tell people this story of that Child Health Center, that any child in Pike County can go to a medical care and get some of the best medical care in the world.
Yeah, we bring specialists in all the time. We work with the Children's Hospital in Birmingham. It's Charles Henderson did so much for our county. I mean, just look at the buildings. Charles Henderson High School, every campus has got one. It was just quite a legacy, and like I say, he actually, Power South is a product of some ideas that Governor Henderson had years, you know, prior. Power South was founded in 1941. We fixed to celebrate our 75th year in June of 2016.
Just the fact that the cities like Brundage and Troy and Dothan and several others own their own utility. I mean, and y'all really make a profit off of that.
Well, it gives
you control the rates too.
It gives you the cash flow, and right now our rates are very comparable with Alabama Power or anybody. But it gives the city the cash flow, which helps us meet our payroll, number one. But number two is we can match grants. When you go to get a grant, you can say, well, I'll put X dollars in it, 10, 20%, and gives you extra points. So Brundage has been very fortunate that just like Troy and Luverne's another town that owns their own utilities, Dothan. But we makes us have a lot of opportunities that some of our sister cities that does not own their electricity, that they don't have that cash flow.
So appropriate on Wiley's now the lobbyist for Southeast Alabama Gas.
I think it's great.
I like old Wiley. He does a good job. Well, Jimmy, one final thing. One thing too, I want to say, your city's in good financial condition.
Yes, sir. In fact, we're going Thursday. We're going to be rated by Standards & Poor. I'm going home tonight to kind of prep for it, but we feel confident we'll get a rating, and that's pretty good for a town of less than 2,100 people.
Is that what population is in Brundage now?
Less than 2,100.
What was it when you became mayor?
It was more than that, but we've lost population because the young people didn't return. The baby boomers, when the baby boomers left, we haven't overcome that.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, I hate to say it, our time's up. You and I could talk politics all day long, couldn't we?
Oh, yeah.
We love it. Jimmy and I are talking all along, all year round, and we love to talk politics. We've both been around it for a while. And I thank Jimmy for being with us, and we thank you viewers for watching our show, Alabama Politics. Again, our guest tonight has been long time, almost 40-year mayor of Brundage, Jimmy Ramage. We thank Mayor Ramage for being with us, and thank you viewers for watching. Thank y'all very much.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.